Anthonites, whoa, let's go ahead and adjust you. There we go. Alright, Anthonites. Wanted to say that in the next couple of days, there may be videos going up that attack me as a person, attack my character, possibly paint me in a light that it might not be true. I don't know. But there might be some drama videos coming up about me on other channels. And if those videos do surface, I may have to make response videos just to clear the air and to make sure that everything's out there on the table. I don't really like doing that kind of thing, but it is what it is. And I really don't want this to become like an Onision type thing. But if it does, hey, you know what? It helps his success. Why not mine, right? But what I did want to argue, or not argue, what I did want to talk about today is in response videos, or when you're discussing something, if you're looking to do so from a logical standpoint, if you're wanting to do so in a way that's going to make sure that you're taken seriously, there are some logical fallacies that you'll want to make sure that you're not committing, and that you can identify in others, because that helps you know where their argument lies. So here's the thing. A logical fallacy is basically something that is untrue, or something that is simply logically makes no sense. So, we'll go through these. There's the first one I want to talk to you about is called ad hominem, which is Latin for at the man. And basically this means that this is something that someone does to another person, and a lot of times it means that they don't have anything else to argue about, or they don't have a point to make. And also, when I say argument, I don't necessarily mean like bickering back and forth. I'm talking about making points, counterpoints, debate style, or just friendly, healthy discussion. So, ad hominem or at the man, that means that, let's say if I say, the sky is blue, and you say, oh yeah, but you got an ugly face. That's ad hominem. That means that you're attacking me instead of my point. You're not providing any evidence that the sky is not blue. You're just moving the discussion in a way that you want to move it and not staying on topic, not actually doing anything other than attacking my character or whatever. Okay. The next one I wanted to talk to you about, and sorry, I have a script down here, so if you catch me looking, I'm sorry. Next one that I wanted to talk to you about is argument from authority. Now this basically means that if an authority says something, it's not worth looking into anymore. Let's say your top authority is CNN or Fox News or whatever, and they say that the water in the Gulf of Mexico is all dried up. You accept that as universal truth, no matter what, and you want to look into it no further. And regardless of how many other places say opposite, you don't care. This is a logical fallacy. If you don't open yourself up for fact-checking or other references, that's a logical fallacy. Pardon me. Okay, argument from adverse consequences. Basically, this fallacy goes that if X must exist, as X must exist, because if it didn't, then how could Y be possible? And this is like, butter must exist, otherwise, how would toast be soft? Toast can be soft in many other ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be butter. It could be margarine. It could be all sorts of different jams and jellies and spreads. This is usually used in religious arguments. Like, if God didn't exist, how could this happen? But it applies to other things as well. And that is a logical fallacy. Just for one thing to exist, the other thing doesn't necessarily have to exist or behave the way you say it does. So, alright. Appeal to ignorance. Now this is basically the claim that whatever has not been proved false must be true, or vice versa. There is no evidence against the existence of UFOs. Therefore, they must exist. Not exactly. Let's see here. Now, the next one I wanted to talk to you about is special pleading. Now, special pleading is a logical fallacy that rescues the proposition of a rhetorical or circumstance from trouble. So, in other words, stating that a fact is true because no one understands exactly what is going on. If I told you that that my local branch of my bank could could essentially loan out and print 90, let's say, for every $100, they only had to have $10 on hand. And because nobody knows any different, I can get away with saying that. Not exactly. But there is some truth to that example, but it's just not your local branch. There are other governing bodies. But you can see how that, how that sort of twisting, how you could take something that, the group you're talking to or the people you're talking to don't necessarily know a lot about, and you could twist things based on their knowledge. All right. So, begging the question, and this is an example of this, is we must institute the death penalty to lower the rate of violent crime. But the thing is there really any evidence that instituting the death penalty will lower violent crime? Do we have that data? Or another example is, the stock market fell yesterday because of a technical adjustment and profit-taking by investors. But you have to ask yourself, is there really any independent evidence to support such a claim? A lot of times, no. This is sort of like one of those things where I'm sure a lot of you have heard, if you start a sentence with, studies have shown, people have a tendency to believe it. You have to be critical of these things, and you have to actually ask, okay, what is your source on this? And just assuming that you're going to go unchecked, that's a problem. Or phrasing things in a way that's going to keep people possibly from checking your sources is a problem. Okay, observational selection, ignoring the bad in a situation and only focusing on the good. During the Bush presidency in the U.S., the right saw him as the infallible Bush. The left saw him as the totally failed Bush. And anything, like, on the polar opposites, anything that really questioned those two narratives, they weren't having a part of it. They didn't accept that. So don't do that. Basically, this is cherry picking and choosing what side of the narrative you're going to go on. A lot of things, sadly, they don't go on polar opposites. The fight between good and evil, not really a thing. There's more like a fight between, this area here. Okay, let's see here. Misunderstanding tactics or small statistics. Now, this logical fallacy, how about this? Try to see how polls and statistics can be skewed. If they've listed the population the statistics have come from, how were the statistics calculated? Are they meaningful based on the criteria used? And are they being applied properly? And again, this is called small statistics or misunderstanding statistics. And basically, a good example of this is, okay, here's one. The often touted feminist wage gap.
The wage gap is simply the average earnings of men and women working full-time. It does not count for different job positions, hours worked, or different jobs. It has nothing to do with the same job. It has nothing to do with discrimination.
Now, the problem with that is that those statistics are inherently flawed because they don't take into consideration that in the STEM fields, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, those are predominantly men. Not totally, but those are professions that attract men, and who, men just end up there. So, now, in recent years, I will say that those fields have done a lot to attract more women, and that's great. But that doesn't make quoting that false statistic a good thing or acceptable. Okay, moving on here. Inconsistency. Now, this is a logical fallacy that when one viewpoint is accepted, but another viewpoint is dismissed simply because it counteracts the speaker's personal perspective. Believing that a falling life expectancy in Russia is because failures of communism, but not believing that an increased infant mortality rate could be because of the failures of capitalism. That might be a little bit more of a nuanced thing, but basically it's again a situation of picking and choosing what statistics you want to use for your narrative. All right, so let's see here. Let's keep going. I'm down to almost 12 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay, NonSequitur, or Latin for it doesn't follow. Now, this happens when people have simply ignored alternative possibilities, or they've attracted something to an uncomfortable cause. Most commonly, this conclusion is stated that it does not follow from the argument to support it. Because pollution is becoming more of a problem in our cities and the air quality is decreasing, people are becoming poorer. Wait, what? That's called a non sequitur. It's just basically like, how the hell did you draw from here to here? Explain. And people do that all the time. I see it in presidential debates and other local governments, and a lot of times it goes unchecked by the moderator. And that's weird, because that's supposed to be the moderator's job, is to make sure that they're not doing this. Okay, let's see here. Now, post hoc ergo propter hoc, or Latin for it happened after, so it was caused by. An example to demonstrate this would be to say that pirates were keeping the world safe from global warming, because as the number of pirates dropped, global warming went up. What's up with that? Now, obviously, we know that that's not the case. However, it does give you kind of a colorful explanation of what this fallacy is and what it does, how it can be used to manipulate things. Okay, let's see here. So, the excluded middle, or the false dichotomy. Basically, this is saying that you've got to be this way or you got to be this way. If you're anywhere in between, screw you. Basically, it's just saying you have to choose one or the other and there's no in between. That is a false dichotomy. Now, the next one I wanted to talk to you about is called a slippery slope. And basically, the idea is that the action will lead to a secondary effect that is not the direct cause of the original action. If we allow abortion in the first weeks of pregnancy, for example, it will be impossible to stop abortions of full-term infants or something along those lines. Like, basically, it's like I've heard the example. If we allow gay people to get married, then what's next? Bestiality? Marrying cows? What? That makes no sense. It's that slippery slope argument. Like, we do this now, it'll only be a matter of time before... And that's a logical fallacy. Okay. Another one that I wanted to talk to you about, and this might cut off, and if it does, I'll just make another video talking about the rest. Confusing correlation with causation. This assumption is that because variable A is present in the same situation as variable B, A must be the cause of B. Really, there is no mechanism for how A causes B, so it's non-causative. Again, similar example to what I was talking about pirates and global warming. A doesn't necessarily cause B. A fall of A doesn't cause B. But, again, people can do that. So, I could say that, I could say that, eating potatoes, and people who eat potatoes eventually die. Therefore, potatoes cause death. And no, it doesn't work that way. So, the next one I want to talk to you about is called a straw man tactic or straw man argument. This is basically putting words in your opponent's mouth or twisting those words so that you can easier beat the argument. So, this basically means, like, if I were to say, oh, okay, so you just believe that we should all go live in grass huts and wipe our butts with leaves. No, that's not the argument that was made. That's what you want me to say so you can attack that, rather than what I actually said. Okay, the next one is suppressed evidence and other half-truths. This is pretty self-explanatory. Half-truths and omitting evidence, bad. Don't do that. And then weasel words. This is the last one I want to talk to you about. Is the relabeling of certain tactic or facts that, in order to make it seem tacit or uninteresting. Like, for example, the president may declare war without the consent of Congress, but as long as it's called a police action, then war is fine. What? So, hopefully now you can see what I'm talking about, and if you'd like me to go over some of these a little bit more, I can give you a lot more examples. I can do more videos like this. But I thought I would take this opportunity to arm you with what you may need should you ever find yourself in a discussion where you need to prove your point. Also, if someone's playing dirty pool and they're not fighting fair or logically, or they're not staying on topic, maybe this will help you. Anyways, till next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all those things that make us love our jobs. Also, be awesome to yourself and amazing to each other. Bye, guys.